Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Advisors Advance with James Murphy. We are in for a treat today. We are here with Francine, who's going to tell us a little bit about gaining an advantage in this crazy market. So, without further ado, let's get the show going. Francine, hello, and thank
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure to have you on the show. Now, you are with Corcoran Sawyer Smith.
Correct.
Tell us about this amazing agency.
It is amazing, I have to say. Well, Corcoran is a national brand, actually an international brand. And we've become the New Jersey affiliate last July. So we have our headquarters are in Hoboken and Jersey City.
Okay.
We also have satellite offices in Asbury and looking to continue to develop those offices throughout Bergen and Essex counties. So we are on a really, really nice trajectory to increase our business and with the full support of the Corcoran brand behind us. So it's exciting.
Yeah, it's nice to have a big brand, right?
Mhm.
It's something that is well known, that has plenty of financial backing,
Correct.
and gives the that extra advantage.
Mhm.
Well, that's kind of what we're talking about here today, Francine. We're talking about an advantage and how to give our first-time homebuyers that advantage. One of those advantages may just be simply working with someone like yourself. So, for our audience, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Um, Absolutely.
Sure.
So I've been working in real estate for a few years, and I really enjoy it. I have a real passion for helping clients realize their real estate goals, whatever that may be, renting, buying, listing, and supporting them throughout that process. Um, so I love it. I learn something new every day from my clients or my lenders or whoever I'm working with.
So, would you say what would you say is the main reason why you got into this business?
I got into it because I really felt like I could leverage all my past experience, which I held some leadership positions in wholesale and retail, um, and had the ability to really sell different types of product, negotiate large deals, understand logistics and operations. So I felt that all of those tools really lent themselves to me being very successful in real estate. And plus the fact I love real estate.
Love real estate, love people, and you've got that negotiating skill set, which is, I'm sure, coming in handy in this market.
Correct. It's vital.
Yeah. What kind? Where do you see yourself doing the majority of your negotiating? In the beginning of the process, middle, towards the end?
I would say the majority of it is at the beginning. I'd say, then you really need to negotiate during the attorney review process, the inspection process. So I'd say there's negotiation throughout the process, but you really need to position yourself well and understand where your strengths are
Mm-hmm.
from an offer perspective
Mm-hmm.
and leverage the client's ability to be able to have an appealing offer so that you can get it accepted.
Okay.
That's key.
And what do you think is vital in this market as far as your offers goes? Does it have to do with down payment amounts? Does it have to do with closing times? What do you think is giving your buyers the edge?
I know that it's very important for you to not only understand the buyer's wants and needs, but marry those wants and needs to what the seller is looking for.
Oh, that's great.
Because you need to be able to appeal to that seller, not just on an emotional level, that you want the house, you love the house. Okay, do they need a quick closing? Do they need a use and occupancy? Do they need things to be waived from an inspection standpoint or an appraisal standpoint? And when we work and understand what the seller needs so that you can be appealing from an offer perspective, and again, leveraging the help of the lender and making sure the lender is your partner so that you are not only, presenting it on paper, Francine as the real estate agent for the buyer, but also have the support with the lender. I feel that that's how I get my offers accepted, especially in a highest and best market, which is exactly what we're in right now.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I love about what you just said was this kind of this reverse engineering approach with your offers, right? It's understanding your sellers
Mm-hmm.
and catering your offer to meet the seller's desires, right? And make your buyer look that much better, more appealing. I think
Correct.
that's fantastic, and I think that's an approach that I don't know if everybody's doing, but I think everybody should do, right? It's understanding the target and then figuring out how to reach that target by working your way backwards, that reverse engineering concept.
Correct.
That's fantastic. So as far as how long have you been doing this real estate again?
Couple years.
Couple of years? Yeah, a few. It's been a while. And I always love to ask this question. What do you have one transaction in your mind that just sticks out that you can remember like that?
I really remember all of them, to be honest with you, because when I work with my clients, whether it's on the listing side or the buying side, we spend so much time together. And, whether it's communicating via text, email, phone calls, meeting in person, that they all, they become fast friends,
Yeah.
and that's really the goal, is to be able to have a client for not just for one transaction, but for a lifetime.
Okay.
But I don't know if I can say one specific transaction.
Yeah, I think that's difficult, right? And
Yeah.
because for me, to just pick, I mean, we've both been doing this for quite some time,
Mm-hmm.
and I can think of some transactions that like, whew, that was a doozy, or that client was amazing,
Yeah.
or whatnot, or that seller was a nightmare,
Well,
right?
I think I like working with the new home buyers the best,
Yeah.
because I feel like they're the most excited about the process, and they're also so um, eager to learn
Mm-hmm.
about the process. I'm actually working with one client right now, and we're going to be closing in a couple weeks. And it's been a really, really nice journey, getting to know them and, just again, educating them, and them always leaning on me to give them the answers. And if I don't have the answers, I'm pointing them in the right direction
Right.
as to where to get those answers.
Right.
So it's like, my children, I love them equally, just like my clients.
I do love first time home buyers. There's something about the unknown to them, that and providing the solutions to their concerns or issues, or the answers to their questions.
Mhm.
It does make you more of an advisor than a salesperson, right? And that's how I look at myself and most of the partners that I work with. I think the difference between a salesman or a sales lady and an advisor is huge. And not many people realize what the difference is, because when you're selling, you're focusing on that commission. You're focused on you're closing that transaction. But when you become an advisor, I think you're more focused on the individual or the
Mhm.
families or the
Mhm.
people that are involved within that process, whether it's the buying side or the selling side. We have lives on the table here, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's a huge transaction financially. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that creates a lot of nervousness and tension and stress.
Mhm.
Is there any set of buyers, you don't have to mention their names, but any buyers that come to your mind that were like the real nervous Nellies, right? The ones that were just chomping away, that by the time they closed, they had zero fingernails anymore and just maybe some more gray hair than they started with. But tell me about that transaction, if the ones pop into your mind. And how did you resolve it? How did you fix them? How did you advise them that it would be okay?
Um, it's really, I have a couple clients in mind. It's really about the unknown.
Yeah.
So for them, it's my job to mitigate the stress
Yes.
and have them feel comfortable
Mm-hmm.
and secure in our decisions, because we make them as a team.
Right.
And like I said, if I don't have the answer, I'll get it for you. But that is really the key, is to continue to get them from a high level of stress and anxiety to lean on me so I can absorb that for them,
Mm-hmm.
and let them just focus on how their life is going to be post this
Right.
transaction.
Right.
So that's really, I've had a few clients that I've had to kind of really handhold,
Yeah.
and looking back, when we're at the closing table, they just are like, "Thank you. Thank you so much." And that's very gratifying to
Yes.
me.
Yeah.
It really is.
Because you're giving them your all, right?
Mhm.
And I find that when you have clients that are leaning on you or looking to you for advice, there's like an extra added level of responsibility, right?
Mhm.
And when I take that advisor approach, that level of responsibility is a lot greater than, am I going to close this and get paid? It is, are they going to be okay when I hang up this phone, right? To like, when they go and talk to somebody, are they going to feel, ah, it's okay,
Yeah.
right? Or is it going to be, the perception? And I
Right.
think you kind of hit the nail on the head. As an advisor, or an advisory person, right? We're guiding that perception. We're showing them that it's not what your emotions make you think it is. This is what it really is, right? Because
Right.
negative emotions will often take control if we don't control them,
Mhm.
right? I find so, and I think that's how you can separate yourself. What other ways would you separate yourself? Because there's plenty of real estate agents out there, just like there's
Mhm.
thousands and thousands and thousands of mortgage guys as well. How do you separate yourself from your competition?
Well, I personally spend a lot of time getting to know my clients' wants and needs, their must-haves, focus on a specific location, so that we have a good understanding of what's going on in that specific market. So I conduct my business from Hudson County to Hunterdon County.
Okay.
So I cover a lot of areas in North Jersey. Um, and each area has their own benefits and challenges,
Sure.
right? So I make sure that they understand where they're looking, and if this is an area that has a septic or has a well, or and they're used to sewers and public water, like
Mm-hmm.
they have to understand that. And the goal really is to also have them know where they are from a lending perspective,
Sure.
so that we can focus on the right properties. Because the worst is when they're looking at properties and it's either out of their reach.
Yeah.
And that's very disappointing, especially for a new home buyer,
Right.
so
Because they're getting emotionally attached, right?
yeah.
They're envisioning their children or their families or their whatever have you. I had someone who was buying a house and she's telling me that I could just the staircase. I can picture my daughter coming down on her prom. I said, you don't even have children yet. So the dreams start
Hmm.
right at the very beginning, and I think that's also it's an interesting point when I speak with my real estate agent partners. It's always like when we work with the same clients, and you have the advantage of working with those emotions, right? As the real
Hmm.
estate agent, you're showing them the houses, you're building that dream. You're talking about this could be here, this room could do this, and then I have to talk about the numbers, right? And everything changes because then it's like, well,
Right.
not everything. Most of the time, it's good, but every now and then you get, oh wow, I didn't realize it would cost that much, or I didn't know I had to do all that, or I have
Right.
to have this. So sometimes there's a little bit of a halt. But what we try to focus on is, all right, like you said, mitigating the stress. We
Hmm.
mitigate the stress on our financial side,
Right.
and it's often just a simple shift in perception where it's you look at something one way before you get that advisor's advice or the professional's advice, and then we're there to say it's not that bad.
Mm.
Well, if you really want this, this is what you have to do, and we can make it work. And sometimes I've got clients that are just, all right, well, instead of putting X amount of money down, maybe I'll put a little bit less, but I'll pay off this big monthly payment, right?
Hmm.
This credit card I can't get down, or a car loan
Right.
that I have very little left on, but it's costing me 600. I had a client who had a car loan. It's like almost $700, like six and change, but there was only $7,000 left on the loan, and they're huff and hauling like I don't know how I'm gonna do this. Well, just put $7,000 less on the house, pay off your car, and now that mortgage payment that was so high really isn't that bad when you consider. So sometimes it's just a perception shift. I
Hmm.
think that, but that's what makes us good at our job,
Exactly.
right? So I'm really trying to draw this. I want to draw a story out of you. So I would love to hear you tell me those anxious client. Tell me about your first transaction. Can you remember your first transaction?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
It was probably
How'd
the
it go?
most difficult transaction that I had.
To start a career,
Yes,
you're going in difficult. Tell us about it.
absolutely. Um, my client was an international client,
Okay.
and he really wanted to purchase this property in Weehawken.
Okay.
And the agent that I was working with was probably one of the most difficult agents that I've ever worked with. So
Mm,
it didn't make it easy for me,
right.
but I needed to figure out ways to not make it personal and make it professional and get to the end goal, which was closing on the property for my client.
Right.
So yeah, no, it was it was a great story. He ended up not even living in the property. He took another job, moved to California, and then we
Ah.
ended up renting it. So after all the craziness,
Right.
we ended up renting it. So, but it was a challenge.
And have you worked with this client before or since then? Have you? Oh, it
Absolutely.
has?
Yeah, we're looking at properties right now.
Wow.
So,
And it's just where sometimes getting over those challenges or
hmm
getting through those challenges builds such a strong rapport with that person because you did it.
right.
You did it. You got them through. You made it happen when in their mind they're like, this is never going to happen. There's no way. Right. And I find that, when I'm speaking with those kind of clients, it's very rewarding. Is it
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, and I think the other part of it was imagine a first-time home buyer that's lives in this country and
Right.
understands a little bit about what's going on. The other part of it was reassuring someone that never bought property in this country.
Right.
So it was even more challenging for me as
Yeah.
an agent to really hone my skills to have them feel comfortable. So that was an extra challenge for me.
But that wasn't the most challenging transaction you've had.
No, not
No.
the most challenging.
Which one stands out? I know I asked that earlier, but is there one that just made you "Ugh," want to consider maybe I should find something else? Maybe I should do that. Maybe this is any of those kinds because I feel like when you do this long enough,
Mhm.
you work with all kinds of people out there, right?
Correct.
And another thing is like you mentioned before with the seller agent. Is sometimes the issues aren't even with you or your side of the deal, right? And
Mhm.
the professional has to learn how to deal with that kind of that energy or attitude or just that kind of person, right? And how they handle things. So, real quick, what what was the most challenging transaction, and what was the challenge that you overcame outside of that first transaction?
I would say uh, I had a property that had inspection issues.
Okay.
So this was already through the preparing the offer, getting it accepted, getting through attorney review, getting through inspection. So it's like you're well into this.
Yeah.
And this client had a specific um, number in mind of what they wanted, and the sellers were not willing to bend. And unfortunately, in the end, I ended up losing this transaction
Mm.
because sometimes you just can't find that common ground. But I've also learned through this process if it's meant to be, the property will come back to you.
Oh, that's so great.
And if it's not meant to be, you learn something through that process that's going to help you on the next transaction and prepare you for what potentially is the challenge. So you're more educated,
Yeah.
you
And the
know?
next challenge isn't so challenging.
Exactly.
And I think that's where your experience comes in, right? When you're working with an agent that's been doing this for quite some time, you're working with someone who's seen these challenges, these difficulties, and overcome those struggles. And I think that's one massive advantage that you provide to your home buyers. And I think that that's something that most buyers should be looking at. Yes, there's the brand new agents that add excitement and youth and exhilaration, but then what they lack is that experience. So I think there's definitely benefits to both newer and more seasoned agents, um, but definitely the experience adds an advantage that is unquestionable.
I agree. Also, one key component is sometimes everyone wants an answer immediately. We live in a generation that it's instant gratification. So they get nervous about not getting a response or no one's answering me and you have to reassure them that there's other things going on,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not that you're not a priority. And sometimes if you are patient, you get the answer you want.
Yes.
So leveraging that and understanding like when to really push and when to kind of sit back and say, it's going to happen, it's going to work out, just trust me, believe me, I've been here.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
that's also very important.
Yeah. Now, I think you've probably said this or touched on this several times throughout this interview so far. But can you tell our audience specifically why would they want to work with you and not another professional?
I like working with clients, and I think that the benefit for working with me is really having a good handle on the market, researching the properties, understanding the temperature as to what is important for that seller to accept the offer, as well as I have a high level of commitment to my clients, whether it's with my time, my energy, also my integrity. Everything that I do and present on my buyer's side or the listing side is a representation of me. So I take that very seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And, the goal for me is to have that buyer or seller feel comfortable
Yes.
that I am the expert and that I will bring them from the beginning to the end of the transaction
Right.
successfully.
Yeah, and I'm sure you bring a level of confidence to that buyer that is exceptional and definitely worth the weight in gold, right? So
Thank you.
I think that's definitely an advantage that all buyers should be taking advantage of. So here's one of my favorite parts of the interview, and this is where we talk about a parting piece of pie. Now, the PIE is an acronym, which stands for something profound, something inspiring, or something entertaining. What would you leave our audience with as a parting piece of pie?
Every time that I work with a new buyer and show them properties, I ask them 4 questions. First one is, do you love the property? And if they say yes, I say, can you see yourself living in this property? And if they say yes, then I ask, what in your mind do you want to pay for the property? And if they give me a number, then I ask them, what is the number that you're willing to lose this property for? Because that is really the most important number. And it doesn't mean it has to be over ask. It could be at ask or it could be under ask. Every single property is different. And you need to understand where you are in that process. But that dialogue to me is the most important piece of having a successful transaction, because they in their mind know I was not going to pay $1 more for this property, even though I loved it and I could see myself living there. And I'm okay with either paying that number or losing it for $5,000 more. Because the last thing I would ever want is for a client to say to me, I could have paid another $5,000 for the property.
Yeah.
And I said, no, we're not, we've passed that.
Right.
So that to me is really when you get them completely engaged. And that has done very well for me as well as for my clients.
I love that. And how crucial is that stop loss? That stop loss of knowing this is my ceiling. I'm not going to go there. Really, it probably brings a lot of ease, right, to the buyer and to yourself as their professional, right? Because I'm not going to push them past that number, and they know that that's where their comfort level is.
Right.
And I will often have that conversation with the client as well, where I say, let's break it down in increments. So here's what your payment adjusts by for every $5,000, every $10,000 on the loan. And I think that's also great to know. So when you're having that negotiation, when the client or the customer is negotiating with someone like yourself, with the other side, they know, all right, well, I can go up this amount of money in my monthly payment, because that's what it comes down to, right? In most cases, how much is this going to cost me every month, right? Because the appreciation offsets what you're buying it for,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's going to gain value majority of the time, right? Long term, I think you'll always get the value, but short term, there's peaks and valleys, right? But I think that's fantastic, and I think that really shows the handle you have of comfort with your clientele.
And more times than not, they may have a number in their mind, and then we turn to the lender and they feel more comfortable about saying, let's just put another 5,000 in or another 10.
Yeah.
And those are the types of conversations that end up winning that bid. And it's not that I want to spend the client's money,
Right.
but I have to bring all the issues to light so that they can look back and be like, I feel really good about this.
Right.
Because it's not just a one conversation answer on buying real estate.
Right.
It's a journey.
It's just definitely a journey, and the journey really begins right when that first idea comes of, why are we paying rent, or why are we still living with our parents, or why are we not moving on, or growing, and whatever have you.
Right.
And then there's that process of, what do I need to know? How do I make this happen? Is this even possible? And who is going to show me my new home, right? Because the house is a house, but the home is the home, right? The home is where your family's going to grow, where your memories are going to be made, where you're going to be marking walls and jotting things down, and taking pictures. And I think that's the emotional connection that is so crucial in this process of buying a home. Francine, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I truly think that your insight, your experience, the wisdom that you shared with us will definitely add an advantage to anybody out there looking to buy a house. Any parting words?
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well,
It's really been a pleasure. I'm sure you can tell by my enthusiasm that I love what I do and I love working with my clients. And I am here for any new home buyers that want to reach out and work that journey together.
Well, I am sure we'll have your contact information somewhere on this video. And anybody who's interested in working with Francine from Corcoran Sawyer Smith, please reach out, give her a buzz. Her information will be below. This has been the Advisor's Advantage with James Murphy, where we're providing the advantage you need for the experience you want. And we'll see you on the next show.